calling the kickoff of our efforts as a community with our community partners that are going to be explaining the path forward for our area to be a historic and cultural district. There's survey work that needs to start. We need your input. And as also we have the opportunity, with permission of the new owner of what was the Etta James home in our neighborhood, of being nominated as a historical cultural monument. So I know there's been talk for maybe 20 or 30 years about maintaining the historic character of Athens and the Hill. So we're here. And we're going to get it started. We're going to kick it off. I want to do a couple of introductions of who our community partners are. And I'll go to the right if you can introduce yourself.
Want me to start?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Adam Rochford. I'm with Historic Resources Group, and I'll be one of the authors of the HCM nomination for the Etta James House.
Welcome.
Hi everybody, my name is Evan St. Charles. I'm an associate principal with Architectural Resources Group, so ARG and HRG are working together on the community outreach for the Etta James, the HCM, but also with the Athens and the Hill HPOC. Can you explain what those acronyms are? Historic Cultural Monument, so the landmark nomination for the Etta James House, and then the HPOZ, which is Historic Preservation Overlay Zone, and that's the historic district, so looking at the historic neighborhood.
Good morning, I'm Christine Lazaretto. I'm one of the managing principals of Historic Resources Group, so I will be working with Adam. Good morning, everyone. Alicia Polachek. I'm a senior associate at Architectural Resources Group, and I will be managing the Athens on the Hill HPAC survey.
All right.
Hi everybody, good morning. Thank you so much for giving us a big part of this beautiful Saturday morning to be here with us. My name is Chris Morris, another Chris and not Christine. I'm with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and I am so thrilled, thank you to Pamela and everybody else in this room for allowing us to be here today and to be able to do this work in terms of designating, finally giving the recognition that this neighborhood deserves with the survey and with the designation of Etta James's home. So thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for the introduction. So before we go further, I want to say we are recording this particular discussion today. So is there anyone here that's in objection of that? You don't want to be on camera or anything? Okay, I don't see. Okay, I just wanted to make that announcement. Okay, so we also have some other community partners. Ms. Kennard, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. My name is Gail Kennard, and as of 2 days ago, I was a member of the city's Cultural Heritage Commission, and this is a city body that designates historic cultural monuments. But now, because I'm not a member of that body anymore, I can do these kind of meetings and meet all these wonderful people like you, because this is what community looks like. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'll share some about the process for getting a historic cultural monument designation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Hooks, introduce yourself.
My name is Rosie Lee Hooks. I'm director of the Watchtowers Arts Center campus, and we are historic preservation side on the National Register of Historic Places, number 15 on cultural heritage. We got a lot of titles. So, and we're a very important institution there in Watts. We've been there, the Watchtowers are 104 years old. The Watchtowers Art Center is 64 years old. The Charles Mingus Youth Art Center was built in 2008. So we're still surviving there, doing major work. Our foundation is very, very strong. Watts has more artists than any other part of this city. I'm talking in all disciplines. Just in Watts alone, you got Locke High School, Patrice Rushen, Lubin Chancellor, Reggie Andrews, the Daz Band, Tyrese, Buddy Collette, Charles Mingus. So one of our mottos is we don't do mediocre because we don't have to. I brought some books. We believe in documentation, because if we don't write it down, somebody else is going to write it, and it may not be the truth. This study guide we do with each exhibition. You see the exhibition we have is Politics, Race, and Cartoons. Come see it. It's very explicit, and we have to be very explicit at this moment because of our circumstances. But also in that study guide, we have a jazz mentorship list of musicians, of about 1,000 musicians, major people coming from our community. We also have a list of filmmakers, visual artists, and all of those kind of things, a separate one. Fruit of Our Garden, it's called. So we do a lot of documentation. We don't keep it ourselves, we disseminate it, so y'all know what's going on and who's on first and third and second.
Okay, and last but not least, I want to introduce the new owner of the Etta James home. Stan. And his wife, yes. So I just want to tell a really brief story. So when I met, or say who you are first, introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Mark Brooker. I am originally from South Carolina. Moved to LA in 2000. I moved to LA in 2009, and just bought a house in September 2022 when I proposed to this beautiful woman. Didn't know it was the Etta James house until weeks after we were interested, because the listing was listed as the Etta Jones house, which is, to me as a singer, I'm a singer, entertainer, that was fitting also. But when we found out it was the Etta James's former home, we were even more ecstatic about that. But we're happy to be here. Oh, this is Wanda. I have a tendency to kind of steal the stage. But we're very happy to be here and interested to hear what transpires today. So thank you all.
But wait, before you go, tell them the story about the home purchase process. Tell them about that.
Oh, that process. So we made a bid on the house because we saw what every other house was going for, and we bid $30,000 less than what they're asking for, and they said no. So we were on the way to Jamaica. We were like, don't worry about it, don't sweat it. We found out that someone was in negotiation to purchase a house, and we went on to Jamaica and we said, that's our house. We know it's our house, so whatever. So when we were in Jamaica, like the third day we were there, I was checking the listings, and it said, the house is back on the market, the buyers could not perform. And we looked at each other. As soon as we get home, we're going to call the realtor, our agent, and make another bid and give them what they want for this house. And so we got the house, and the rest is history.
All right.
And one other person that I want to introduce is Yvonne. Introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kyle. It's an honor to be here. My name is Yvonne Ibarra. I'm a historic preservationist and architect, originally from New York City, where it's not uncommon to see neighborhoods really fight for designation, for landmark protection, or even just cultural recognition. And especially in a city where things change so rapidly. But here too, things are changing and developers come in and out. But this, like, best secret in town is Athens. has to be out there, has to be broadcast, has to be made public because it's so important and it will teach other neighborhoods to do the same. You've launched something so important in such a short period of time. It's so impressive at what happens when a neighborhood comes together, when the community comes together, and when people have such passion, it just spreads, you know. So Pamela was so nice and just welcome to invite me after we met at a meeting about her district, and so I'm honored to be here and to see the enthusiasm, and I just want to be a part. I want to play a part any way I can. So thank you. Thank you, Pamela.
Okay, so those are the introductions for now, and then we'll kick it off with the introduction.
Great, thank you, Pamela. Well, before I start, I want to acknowledge my partners in this project, without whom this project would not be possible. Pretty much everybody that you've already met, with 2 exceptions. Well, actually 3. So Andrew and Daniela and Arabella. This is project that we're doing here is called LA Women's Landmarks. It's something that I came up with the help of the inestimable Gail Kennard back there a couple of years ago. And the intention was, the city of Los Angeles has been doing landmarking for a very, very long time, basically since the early 1960s. There are about 1,300 historic cultural monuments in the city of Los Angeles, 1,300 plus places that over the last 50, 60 years have been determined worthy of being recognized as local landmarks. Of those 1,300, 2% are designated for women. That's 2%, which means that all of the contributions that women have made to LA's history are not being recognized. They're in fact quite intentionally being overlooked. LA Women's Landmarks is intended to change that. We really want to do a good job, show people how and why women's history is important and how these places need to be formally recognized. And I am thrilled to be able to do this work in partnership with the Los Angeles Conservancy. So Andrew and Daniela and Arabella, can you guys stand up and just introduce yourselves really quickly?
Hi, I'm Andrew Polimian. I'm the Director of Advocacy at the Conservancy. We're half of this project with National Trust. We help designate a lot of things. Sometimes we write the nominations ourselves. Sometimes we collaborate on nominations, but I think we're really excited to work with Mark and Wanda on their house. And we're not part of the HPOZ process, so we're just focused on Etta James, but we're really happy to be here and learn from the whole community.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Daniela Velasco. I'm the Neighborhood Outreach Coordinator with the LA Conservancy. And I'm really happy to be here. It's our first new HCM with the LA Women's Landmark Project, so exciting times. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Arabella Delgado, and I'm the researcher for the LA Women's Landmarks Project. So I did a lot of the early work on assessing women's representation in HCMs.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for everything that you're doing. So the purpose of this meeting today, I could not be happier that Pamela approached me at a city council meeting to tell me about the Etta James home, because this really, in so many ways, exemplifies what LA Women's Landmarks is about. There is this incredibly important history of an internationally significant woman, and a black woman who has helped shape music history, and hardly anyone knows about it. And this is exactly the kind of thing that LA Women's Landmarks is designed to do, which is to help property owners like Mark and Wanda who are interested in having, you guys are going to be the stewards of this history and of this place for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. How can we help make sure that the rest of the world understands and appreciates the history that lives here in Athens on the Hill? And so this is, as Daniela mentioned, we're doing a number of amendments to existing nominations to add in the women's history that was overlooked when those places were first designated. But this is going to be our very first new historic cultural monument, specifically designated to recognize women's history. And I'm really thrilled that it's happening here, and it's recognizing someone like Etta James, who deserves so much more recognition than what she's gotten. And I want to also thank my colleagues here from both Historic Resources Group and Architectural Resources Group, who are some of the premier consultants doing this work in Los Angeles. We talked about this, so the National Trust and the LA Conservancy, we're leading this huge project across the city of LA. We're raising the money and we're paying the consultants to be able to do this work on behalf of the property owners. And when I approached them about it, they said, we don't want to compete against each other. This is such important work. We want to team up and do it together because both of our companies want to be involved. And I don't think it's a coincidence that these are both women-owned firms. So it's all in this big spirit of how can we all come together and raise up the history and the stories of women who have really shaped LA and this country's history and culture. And so today, we wanted to make sure that everybody kind of started to get comfortable with what these designation processes are. There's a lot of acronyms, there's a lot of process that goes into this. The last thing that we wanted was for this to just be like a nomination that goes and sits on a shelf in a city department somewhere and nobody ever knows about it. The whole point of this is that this needs to be a community-driven project. You guys, this is your history, this is your neighborhood. We want you not only to be excited about it, but to be involved. And so HRG and ARG will kind of walk you through the designation process. We want to hear your stories. We want to know what your relationship was with Etta and with her family, what information and what history you carry within yourselves about this neighborhood, and be actively involved in this process to the extent that you want to be. So they're gonna walk you through both the historic cultural monument designation process that we're going to do for the Etta James home. So anybody else in the neighborhood who wants to explore designating your property, you'll have a sense of how that works. And then they're also going to walk you through the HPOZ process, which is, as Elisha mentioned, is the Historic Preservation Overlay Zone, which is essentially how LA does historic districts. And we'll be looking at the entire neighborhood. So the Etta James house will kind of be the first designation that kind of leads the way for really understanding the history of the entire neighborhood. Did I kind of get that right? All right, guys. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop talking, and Gail already introduced herself, but Gail will be coming back to talk a little bit more about this from her perspective as somebody who served on the Cultural Heritage Commission, kind of giving you her take on why this is so important and how the community can be involved. So with that, I turn it over to Christine. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. So, Chris just said a lot of what I was going to say more eloquently than I could have, so I won't reiterate what she said. But I did want to say that, we've been talking about these are two separate processes. One is for the Etta James property itself, and then the other is looking at the neighborhood as a whole. We've been collaborating with ARG, as Chris mentioned, on the Women's Landmark Initiative, but we also thought we should collaborate on this effort as well, because although, our work is grounded in the built environment, it's really about the stories. And Etta James, part of her story is being part of this community. Part of the community story is all the people who lived here and who live here. So it makes sense that our research efforts would sort of dovetail with each other. We can also work together to, continue talking to all of you and sharing information that we're learning from the community. And then we can also put all of our heads together when we're actually doing the documentation that has to go to the city to make sure we're making the best case possible for designation of these places. Not that I think it's going to be a hard sell, but we really want to make sure that we're doing the community right and putting forth all the information that will be important to have in both of these nominations. So I think that's all I wanted to say. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to kind of walk you through a little more of the process. Just so you know, we are, and by we I mostly mean Adam, who's been really working hard on researching the history of Etta James and her life and career. So we're deeply embedded in the preliminary research for that project. This community meeting sort of kicks off the next phase where we'd love to talk to all of you and learn more. As we all know, there's the written history that you can find in traditional sources, but then there's what really happened and what it was really like to live and be part of the community. So that's what we're looking forward to talking to all of you about. And then the district work will be kicking off shortly, but we're not as far along in that process as we are with the nomination of the Etta James house. So just so you understand that, a little bit that we're working together and we're collaborating, and then the processes will sort of go, the schedule will move forward accordingly based on, how research is going and where we are in each of those projects. So I will turn it over to Adam.
Okay, good morning. So as I said in the beginning, I'll be one of the primary authors of the Historic Cultural Monument application, and I'll briefly walk you through what that means. So basically, an HCM or a historic cultural monument is a place of particular historic and cultural significance to the city of Los Angeles. It could be a building, it could be a site, it could be a tree. As Chris said, there's 1,300 HCM citywide, and women's history is terribly overlooked in that number. So we're hoping to change that with this nomination. In our case, obviously, we're here for Etta James. That's what the nomination is going to focus. It's going to focus on her, and really commemorating her legacy and her profound contribution to music history. HCM applications have a number of different components, but I'll talk about the two that are most important. So the first is basically a statement of significance. This is a rather robust written statement that explains why this place matters. And the second thing that the application needs to contain is a historic context. So we'll be looking at relevant themes. So you can't really understand the house unless you understand where Etta James was living, the people around it, the neighborhood. So that will kind of be addressed in the context portion of it. Okay, so there's a number of different criteria that a property needs to meet to be an HCM. And I will just focus on the one that's relevant here, which is criterion 2, which deals with significant people or historic personages. And I'll read you the language that the city has. So basically, one needs to demonstrate that the property is associated with the lives of historic personages important to national, state, city, or local history. So basically, in a nutshell, what our nomination will show is that Etta James was a legendary Los Angeles-born artist. She changed popular music forever with her sound. And this was her longtime home, and this was her longtime neighborhood, and that's kind of the gist of what we're trying to argue here. So in terms of research, there's this one's hard. Etta James is a large figure, and there's a lot written on her, and it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. There's so much information on her. So I've been diligently going through sources that look at her profound contribution to music history, as I've said. I'm really impressed just by her masterful blending of genres and really her impact on future artists, which is so important. And I really want that to be front and center in the arguments that we make. At the same time, we're looking at the actual building, right? So we're looking at the house, and we're looking at building permits. So I have an excerpt of the building permit on the left that shows the original footprint of the house in 1958. And then we're looking at changes that occurred over time, as all properties will change over time. So we're kind of looking at that whole trajectory. And then we're also looking at the neighborhood, as I said. So we're looking at newspaper articles, other materials to understand Athens on the Hill. And if there's one point that I want to make is that although we're historians, we're really looking to you as the local experts. A lot of this stuff is not documented, the stories and the memories. And so we're really looking to you for your firsthand knowledge of Etta James, and also your firsthand knowledge of this incredible neighborhood. And to that end, if I can put you on the spot, Leonard, we've been going through the various oral history interviews that Leonard's done, and we're so grateful that you sat for that. I know that takes time, and it can be challenging to address chapters of history that aren't pleasant. So just appreciate you doing that for us. And then I'll briefly walk you through the review process. And this varies into different cases, but basically in a nutshell, the nomination is prepared by us, the consultant. It could also be prepared by anybody. And it gets handed off to the Office of Historic Resources, which is the first stop. So their staff will do a review. They'll check to see that it's complete. And then the nomination will be brought before the Cultural Heritage Commission, and there's going to be a hearing. And then what happens is that if it's supported, then it goes off to what's called the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, or PLUM. It's P-L-U-M. And then what PLUM does is they make a recommendation to City Council, and that's the final step. So City Council approves that the nomination is successful. So that was a very quick overview of how an HCM works. I will now hand it over to Architectural Resources Group, and they'll talk about the separate nomination process which deals with the neighborhood.
talk just a little bit about what will go into the nomination for the Historic Preservation Overlay Zone. This is just going to be very...
Excuse me, we can't hear you.
Sure, of course. So this will be a very general overview for now. We're going to be coming back to address the HPOZ process specifically as we get farther in. Like Chris and Christine both said, we're very early on in that part.
And Alicia, I just wanted to mention, this Historic Preservation Overlay Zone, this is being led by Pamela's office in CD 15. You guys are the impetus for this, trying to finally make this happen for this neighborhood. You are funding this, but we decided it would make a lot of sense to try to do these things in tandem, so that the information that we're learning as we're doing the Etta James nomination is informing the HPOZ and vice versa. But I just wanted to make sure Pamela and CD 15 got the recognition for making this happen, so.
Okay, so the HPOZ nomination will include a historic resources survey of the Athens on the Hill neighborhood. A historic resources survey documents and evaluates the properties in a particular geographic area. It allows us to look at an area's overall sense of time and place, which is sort of a phrase we often use, that we're trying to sort of capture the essence of a place, and how each property fits within that overall picture. The surveys are conducted by guidelines that are developed by the National Park Service and the California Office of Historic Preservation. Sort of everything happens according to these standards. It will include the documentation of the properties in the area and the development of historic context to provide background for the area's significance. In this case, the survey will be guided by methodology and the historic context statement developed for Survey LA, which is LA's historic resources survey that they developed for the entire city. The context statement for that includes various contexts and themes, including, for example, residential development, commercial development, and the history of LA's different racial and ethnic groups. And we'll use this as our starting point. So historic resources surveys include field work, which is conducted from the public right-of-way. So you will see us eventually out in the neighborhood. We will photograph and document properties as well as neighborhood features that contribute to the overall character of the area, as well as those that do not. So we'll look at everything. And then, like I said, I'll go into more detail about that next time. But we're not only relying on field work. It will also include extensive research, in this case on the neighborhood and the more general history that gives us the context for the area's significance. As you can see up here, it will include general historical sources, as well as more specific sources that help us drill down into the history of Athens on the Hill specifically. Some of our typical sources, kind of the same for the HCM nomination. It's often things like newspaper articles, archival materials, maps, photographs, building permit records. But we also realize that these are only going to take us but so far in this case, and so we'll be consulting community members, local experts about the history of Athens on the Hill specifically. And then, so with that, I'll turn it back over to Christine to talk about that.
Thank you. And thank you for the clarification about the district nomination. I meant to say that. So, you know, as we've been saying, this is the first of what will be a series of meetings, particularly, as Alicia mentioned, as we get into the district nomination. We'll be coming back to the community. Hopefully, you all will be willing to come back a couple more times and help share your stories with all of us. And Pamela has a particular program that she's going to talk about in a minute. But we just sort of listed on this slide some opportunities that we would like to engage with you in to help us make the case for designation and to sort of get the city to stand up and pay attention to the efforts of this community and what you've been trying to do to get the district designated, as well, of course, as Etta James's home. So Adam and Alicia and our teams will be working on various components of this. And so, we're looking to really talk to all of you and understand, as we've been saying, who are the local experts, who are the long-term community members who would remember what it was like to live here for a long period of time, who maybe were Etta James' neighbors when she lived here. So, if some of you I know are in this room already, and if there are others that you think we should reach out to, we'd love to talk to you about that. Just talking to anyone, like I said, about memories of what it was like to live here, what the neighborhood has been like, over time, what it's like to live here now. What are the things that you want to make sure are conveyed to the city about why this is an important place? Other notable residents, I think there's a whole history here based on the people who have lived here over time. That, like I said and Adam has said, is not the traditional thing that you do when you're just out looking at things visually and looking at architecture. In this case, we're really going to dig into the stories about this particular place, and that's where we need all of you to help us. We're also looking for actual archival materials. So we've been doing the research, as we've been saying, that we traditionally do in our historic sources that are available publicly. But we know that there's always a trove of information in the neighborhood, in the community itself. So if there are historic photographs, articles, information about the neighborhood that aren't available in other sources that you would like to share with us to help us tell that story, that would be great. That would be more than great, that would be amazing. And we're also going to be working with all of you. As everyone's been saying, this is a community-driven effort. We're really here because we can put the right words in the right order to go through the city's process and to help sell the nomination in terms of the public hearing process. But we'd really like this to be, for the city to understand that there's wide community support for this. So as Adam mentioned, there's several steps in the process for the designation of the Etta James House. There will be similar steps for the designation of the neighborhood. And so having the community write letters, come to meetings, let the city know how important this is to all of you will be a really important part of that process. So we'll be working with all of you when the time comes for those meetings and those opportunities. And then, of course, we'd love to come back and celebrate with everyone at the end. I'm getting ahead of things here, but we don't want to lose sight of that this is going to be a really great moment for recognizing historic resources in this neighborhood, and we want to make sure that we all take a pause and celebrate that appropriately. So with that, I will turn it over to Pamela.
So thank you. So we have, when I say we, the community, specifically the Athens Boulevard Block Club, started an initiative called Share Your Story, or Share Your Story. So our archivist is none other Leonard King. Come up here, please, sir. Our neighbor. So he has a lot of history. His mother is the Block Club president, Luvon King. Wave your hand to the people. This talent that's right on our street. We didn't know. So he stepped up, and you can tell people about the initiative and how they can help.
Good morning, everyone. So, again, my name is Leonard, and yeah, I'm the neighborhood archivist, and the Share Your Story initiative essentially are oral history interviews where some of you I've conducted some already with, but basically, again, it's just picking your brain about the history, your history, as it relates to living in this neighborhood, growing up in this neighborhood. And so we are looking to continue that, especially in collaboration with all these amazing, groups and resources. So yeah, we are hoping to get that running again. Again, we're looking for stories on Etta James, but of course, if you didn't know her or weren't aware that she even lived in this neighborhood, we still want your stories because ultimately they will help paint a picture of what this neighborhood looked like at a particular point, and what it looks like now even, and why that is culturally and historically significant. So again, everything is better in numbers, so we really want your participation. That being said, if you commit to an interview, we hope you stick with it. I understand we all have busy schedules or things might come up at the last minute, but again, this is really major for us, and even just this is making history in itself. So yeah, at the end, come find me. I'll take your info if you are interested in doing any interviews. Typically they are video recorded, but if you're not comfortable with that, I can do audio recordings, or even if you just want to have a conversation where you share any information you might have that we can relate to everyone else, that would be greatly appreciated. So.
Thank you. And I also want to mention that Jacqueline Marrero, our other Block Club board member, raise your hand to the people who know who you are. She's also been supporting the effort. So far we have Miss Nancy. Can you raise your hand? People know. So we have her reporting. She is the direct neighbor next door, so she knew Etta James personally. So she has a lot of information. We have my cousin Valerie Barbour. Raise your hand so people can see you. So we have her reporting. Alonzo Williams, known as Lonzo. He has a great story that he's shared. Am I missing anybody? We have those three so far. So we need more, so please contact. Leonard is the lead, Jackie is assisting, so between the two of them, we need your information. I had some paper going around for the sign-in sheet. Does anybody have it? I want to see how far we've gotten. It's all full? Wow. Yay. Okay, make sure you sign in, give us your email address, and we will, I'm sorry, is it a question?
We had some late members to come in, so if we could get that sign-in sheet on the side of the table.
Okay. Very good.
Sorry. So first of all, we are thrilled that the Your Story initiative is already happening, that Leonard, that you are doing this work. It's amazing to see like a young person who is taking an interest in their neighborhood's history. So thank you so much. We absolutely consider Leonard to be a part of our team, and the oral histories that you have already done and the oral histories that you are going to do are absolutely going to inform this work. So we consider Leonard a part of our team, and we consider all of you a part of our team as well. So if you're interested in being interviewed or sharing information or sharing your story or your history, please let us know. Like, come up to us today, note that on the sign-in sheet, talk to us in some way so that we make sure that we know you're somebody who's interested in contributing your story or your information to the process.
Thank you. And actually my last, we don't need this, it's okay. Oh, there it is. So the last thing we wanted to do as part of the presentation before we get to Q&A is reintroduce Gail Kennard and ask her to maybe share some insights as a longtime commissioner and maybe some advice to all of us as we start moving through these processes. So thank you.
I'm over the moon excited about this. Leonard, I mean, you're my hero. Because it's important, this community can be the trendsetter for other communities to follow. And I'll tell you why. The histories are not always in the usual places. There was not a reporter at the Los Angeles Times, African-American reporter, until the 1960s. So our stories are not in newspapers, they're not in magazines. The work that you're doing, Leonard, to document this oral history is so, so critical. You have to tell the stories of people who bought their properties. And it's just like, oh, my family bought this property in 1950, or my family bought this property in 1960, or whatever. Remember what was going on in those times. There were restrictive covenants. There was redlining. You couldn't get a loan. So we need to know, how did your family put together the money to buy the property in the first place? How did the families hold on to the properties over generations? And if they didn't hold onto the properties, who were the subsequent owners and what happened? This is really important because, again, it's not in newspapers, it's not in libraries. So you all are on the front line of this. So please encourage others who are not in this meeting to come and participate. It's really, really important. The first draft of history, right? So as was said, I have served on the city's Cultural Heritage Commission. I just completed almost 16 years this month. I'm very proud of the work that the commission has been doing, but as Chris Moore said, only 2% have to do with women, 4% have to do with African American history, out of 1,300 historic cultural monuments. These are properties that are designated by the city to be landmarks. And they're designated for 3 different reasons. One, as Andrew said, for this one, the association with Etta James, because she's a historic personage. The other category is for properties that recognize the broad social, cultural history of the city. So for example, we designated a building in Venice, which was the Monday Women's Club. It was one of the first black women-owned clubs. They bought this small house in Venice. It's not distinguished as a specific historic personage. It was a group. But it was designated because it represented historical, cultural significance. It was black women coming together. This is in the 20s, 30s, 40s, to get together. So that's the second criteria, broad social, cultural things. And the third one is for the architecture. If it has significant architectural design, or it was designed by a prominent architect. For example, if it's a work by the famous architect Paul Williams. Many of his homes have been designated because he was such a genius and a master. So those 3 criteria for HCMs. This again is to be a historic personage. So those of you who are going to be working with Leonard, think about all the other people that might have been involved in that when Etta James was active. So that's also important to document that. So I wanted to mention that. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about is the HPOZ. Historic Preservation Overlay Zone. You'll hear all the alphabet soup about all this. But this is really important also because it's going to designate a neighborhood. It's a historic district. And that comes with certain protections for all of you who have homes in this district. And they will be doing a survey, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. They're going to designate, they're going to evaluate the properties there for whether they're contributing to the historic HPOZ or they're non-contributing. And they'll have to set up criteria, right, for that, what that's going to be. So if you're a homeowner and you live in a historic preservation overlay zone, there will be certain requirements on your property. You can't do certain things on the front, the street-facing side. If you want to put up a huge wall or a huge fence, the building department will put requirements on it. But also because you're in HPOZ, they're going to say, oh, you can't do certain things. It has to be reviewed. There will be an HPOZ board, and hopefully some of you will participate on that board to make decisions about what happens in the HPOZ. So that's another opportunity to get involved as a community, to chart the way your community wants to develop. We're getting amazing property pressures right now. People want to come in and buy our properties, right? Property values are going up. So you need to be engaged in those efforts so you can control the fate of your community. HPOZ is a wonderful way to do that. So that's really important. The other thing is the HCM. So Mark, I can talk to you later about that and what that means.
Okay.
As a historic cultural monument, you will be listed as a landmark in the city. But that means you still have a private home. Nobody can come and knock on your door and say, oh, you're an HCM, I want to come and see your house. You know, it doesn't work. Or even the HPOs, HPOZ homes. Nobody can come and say, oh, you're not a public property. But there are certain requirements that you will have to fulfill. So if you want to make alterations to your house, you're going to have to go through the city. They're not difficult. I mean, if you love the house, you're not going to, tear it down and build, a gold ballroom. Right? You're not going to do that. So, but you'll learn about that. But that's really important. So the HCM does have some requirements. There are also some potential tax benefits that you will learn about, called the Mills Act. HPOZ properties also have opportunity to tap into the Mills Act. The Mills Act program is a statewide program that allows property owners of historic properties, either HCMs or contributing properties in HPOZs, to apply for money to do renovations to preserve their homes. And the money that they spend is deducted from their property taxes. Okay, let me say that again. It's deducted from their property taxes. So it goes down, okay? People in Hancock Park, Los Feliz, Hollywood, they're using this program up to yin yang. They're doing it all the time. But communities like this are not. And that's a big problem. So, whatever. I'm just quiet, okay? That's quiet. So finally, as I said, I just came off the Cultural Heritage Commission commission. One of the things that's really important is for communities to express support for HCM nominations. The Etta James House will come before the commission. And if you can mobilize the community to write emails to the commissioners, and more importantly, to attend the commission hearing. As was said, well, there'll be 2 hearings. There'll be one to take it under consideration, and there'll be a second one to make the final determination. The commission does not control the designation. It just recommends, and it goes to City Council for final approval. 9 times out of 10, the City Council will approve it. But the fact that the community supports it makes a big difference. And it'll also help the City Council person also ensure that it's not just the City Council office, it's the whole community that's supporting. So I encourage you to write those emails and attend the Cultural Heritage Commission meetings. They meet the first and the second Thursday at 10 a.m. I know it's an awful time to be meeting, but for people that have jobs, but it's also online, and you can call in. You can call in, and you'll be on a Zoom screen. So with that, I probably talked too much, but anyway, if you have questions, ask me.
Thank you.
Okay, can I ask one more question? That was the next question. How long does it take? Does it take a year? It could take less than a year, probably 8 to 9 months maybe, because the nomination has to be submitted, and then it has to be put on the agenda. It could take a while, but that's not unusual. There's usually about, I'm thinking maybe 15 to 20 HCM nominations per year that go through the Cultural Heritage Commission, give or take.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Words of wisdom, words to live by from Gail Kennard, who is the vice chair and has been involved with the Cultural Heritage Commission. So thank you, Gail, for being here today and for sharing your decades of wisdom with everybody. And so I know this was a lot of information to absorb in a single meeting. This will not be our only meeting about this, but we just wanted to kind of introduce you to all of us and what we're hoping to accomplish here together in Athens on the Hill. So we've got some time for questions if anybody has questions, or if you're a little shy, you can just come up and ask us later. But yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering if Etta James' children, they're grown now, are involved in the process, and Margaret Inslee, who was Niecy Nash's mother, that is 741 West Avenue, are they involved also? Did anybody contact them?
We would love for them to be. So if you have connections to them, we absolutely would love for her children. We've heard that they had been contacted about it and were supportive, but we haven't spoken to them directly. So we would love to, I mean, they're exactly the kind of folks that we would love to do oral histories with, and also like just hear their perspective on this, and we want them to be supportive of the project. So if anyone can help us connect to
What about Niecy Nash? Do you have connections?
No, we don't. This is precisely why we need folks like you to help us learn. Yeah, go ahead.
I have the numbers.
Great.
No
Well, there we go. Problem solved. Thanks, Alonzo. No, we would love to. Certainly her sons. We absolutely, but also Mrs. Nash. Any other questions? And for the, yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Yes, the architectural resources group, do you work also with homes or just with, also with homes? Okay, so if it's just approach you about their particular home, okay, great.
One thing I wanted to say is Margaret Embley, National's mother, is responsible for getting the designation of Athens on the Hill.
The name.
The name Athens on the Hill, she changed it because it was such a good neighborhood, she wanted to differentiate
Oh,
it
that's
from Athens
amazing.
area.
Okay, well, see, that's right there. That's important, that's incredibly important information for the HPOZ designation, so thank you for that. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
All the information that we've been told about today, can we get that online somewhere?
Certainly. So yeah, Alonzo is very generously
Every little bit of this.
recording this for us. We will absolutely make that presentation available through the. So we'll work with Pamela to figure out how to get that online in a place where you all can access it, both this recording as well as the presentation that was shown today. And we'll provide you with contact information as well so you can get in touch with us if you have questions or you want to volunteer
You all
information.
have business cards that
We do, I do not, but we will certainly make sure that everybody who signed in the sign-in sheet gets this information and gets our
and if
contact.
you don't, you will still
Yeah.
and because I want to know what blocks or
Okay,
everything.
absolutely.
Thank you.
No, that's a really good question. So yeah, we'll make sure that we get the kind of the scope of the project out there for everybody. Uh-huh.
I will start now asking people to have business cards or
Yeah,
something.
absolutely. Yeah.
No, I was trying to give this to Pam.
Oh. Did everybody have a chance to sign? Sign in? We need some, okay, anybody who didn't sign in, we're gonna put this over here and make sure you get signed in.
Any more questions? One moment. Lower your voice, then
Her
speak.
home would be designated, but how does it affect the homes in the neighborhood? Each individual home. Does the price go up, homes go up on value, what does it do?
Do you guys wanna answer that, or Gail?
I can answer that.
Okay,
What are
there you
the
go.
benefits?
Can you stand up, Andrew, so people
I
can
want
hear
to
you?
know the benefits.
You want to know what? The benefits?
Benefits if you're a property owner.
So
in
that's
this
something,
area. The benefit.
like I said, like we're focused mostly on the HCM from the conservancy part, but we work with a lot of districts. And I think how the district emerges and what's a contributor and non-contributor will be determined. What boundaries the district has is still to be determined. So I know Athens on the Hill is like 1/20th to 1/24th, right? But there might theoretically be a district that's just a section of that or half of that. And that's really up for the community to determine. Ultimately, they need your buy-in to do the district. So it's really going to come when they're working on the survey is the first part. What's there? Who was important here? I know, I think Leonard lives in Johnny Roseborough's home, right? And Alonzo, who is famous in his own right, lives in Johnny Otis's home. But like those homes are most likely historic, but maybe there's a house from the 1970s or 80s that's not historic, so it's a non-contributor. So really, depending on if you have a newer house or an older house, it's going to affect how you're impacted. In terms of value, home value, I think what we've seen, and like Gail said, Hancock Park is a HPOZ. If it didn't benefit them, they wouldn't have done it, right? And we hear a lot that, oh, it's going to negatively affect my house value. But I think we found that, districts retain their value in a it doesn't see the high peak, you don't see the speculation, and you don't see the crash when the market pulls back. So your home appreciates in a much more dependable rate.
It's like a stabilizing.
It's a stabilizing factor. You're also dealing now, there's a lot of state laws. I've been told about the project that's proposed, like near your, on the boundary of the district. So having some control over what new development is being built is also going to affect you. So if all of a sudden there's a 6-story building, apartment building in the middle of the district, how will that affect your property value? So that's something you have to kind of, play into, think about and say, okay, what are the benefits versus the negative impacts? In terms of the benefits, Mills Act is a property tax incentive. It benefits mostly new homeowners. Like if you're a long-time homeowner, sometimes your Prop 13 value will be lower than your Mills Act value. But if you're going to sell your home, then it might actually help you with your resale value in certain circumstances. And the city is interested in bringing back the Mills Act and using it, like Gail said, in Los Feliz we're using it. So we want the benefit spread across the city, and the city is actually trying to kind of make it more geographically distributed. So it's not just, central LA and northeast LA that really see the benefits. In terms of the Etta James nomination, that's not going to affect you in terms of your home. It doesn't affect anything on your home value or any restrictions on that. It's just an independent nomination just on that house. It doesn't affect even the existing adjacent properties. So
Right, but you're trying to do the area, right?
I think, yeah, that's CD15 is doing that.
You're trying to do the area also.
Yeah, well, not me, but CD15. But and that's like, I would love to hear your thoughts on that and your concerns, even though it's not our effort. But I know that's a more kind of difficult situation because the community has to buy into it as a whole. And maybe, like I said, maybe it's not all of Athens on the Hill. Maybe there's a section that wants to pursue it. Maybe there's a section that's a little, this is not right for them.
You have a section 120 to 124.
Well, that's the area they'll look at. They'll look at the whole Athens on the Hill.
We're looking at the entire boundary that we know Athens on the Hill. So the entire boundary.
Yeah. So they'll look at that area and to be determined what the survey even shows. It might be that there's a section that's historic. It might be the whole thing is historic, and it might be that we all want this, or half of us want this. And I think it's important for you, as part of this process, to make that clear so that they know kind of what you're working with.
Yeah, sorry to.
One
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
I'm going to close it because I'm
Yeah.
we had the streets closed from 120th and Hoover all the way down Hoover to El Segundo. And then that was removed. But at the time when that was done, it became a very peaceful area. And then we had the big gigantic fence put up on Athens and Figueroa, which stopped a whole lot of something going on. Because that motel was there. Now, that big fence is still there. Will that big fence remain?
In terms of designation, it doesn't affect it.
It wouldn't
Yeah.
affect it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's just between
And
the
say,
cities.
if someone wants to get the other two ends closed off, they can.
It's
Should
a
that be?
it's a process. We're in discussion about that now.
Oh, good, okay.
That's
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say one quick thing to dovetail on what Andrew was saying.
Yeah.
The survey will look at this whole area, as we've been saying, and ARG will tell you more about this in the next meeting. But part of the process will be, once we've done that preliminary look, we come back to all of you and talk about, okay, what do you really want in terms of the designation? So I just wanted to make it clear that we're not gonna impose boundaries on the community. We're just gonna look at it, what we know the general boundaries are today, and then work with all of you about what you may or may not want included in the designation.
And The other thing I just wanted to clarify, so these two things will be happening in parallel. The Etta James individual house nomination will proceed at the same time that the survey work for the district is proceeding. The Etta James nomination, as Gail mentioned, it will probably take several months, could be anywhere between 6 to 9 months. The survey process and the designation of an HPOZ is on a much, much longer timeline. So that's not something that's going to happen quickly. That is a very, very deliberate process that has to have the community involvement and support. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other individual properties like Alonzo or that couldn't raise their hand and say, I want to designate my property individually while the survey and district work is happening. Those two things can happen in concert, but just be aware that because the survey work has to have community support, that's going to take a much, much longer, it's going to be on a longer timeline.
And can I add something, Pamela? Okay. As we're working as a community, we have a lot of good things going on. So we have all of this, and we also are challenged with one issue with the property on 120th and Hoover, which we all are aware of, and that we have legal representation and we're fighting this. So we're hoping that this will be a positive to deter the owner and say, I'm not going to build a 6-story, 50-unit complex with no parking. And so we really want to just keep this positivity-ness going, want everyone to be engaged, and just, we all work as a community, and not allow anyone or anything to divide us. So I just wanted to throw that in there, and to just say how really proud I am of Pamela Thornton, who is a resident of our community, okay? If it wasn't for her. She's fighting for us, and we have to get behind her, because there'll come a time she will not be in a position to help us. And so, and we're hoping someone will follow her that will. But Athens on the Hill, we are a very unique area, and we're being looked over. And now we're getting some visibility, and we have to be engaged, residents. We have to. When it comes to the filth around our perimeters, we have to speak up. We have apartment complexes. We have to reach out to those management companies to say, come clean up around your areas. We have to find out who they are, make them accountable. When we see something, we have to say something. Don't just drive by. You see a pile of junk, trash, call 311, report it. We have Pamela, we have Rudy, we have people we can reach out to now. So we have no excuse for not trying to help ourselves. So please, let's use our resources and make this a great thing for us.
Oh, wait, before you go, there's something we need to talk about too. Paying the lawyers, and we need donations.
Well, I didn't want to bring that up.
Yeah, well, to keep it a historic designation, we need a lawyer to make sure that homes aren't torn down and razed and put up, like she said, a apartment unit. And it's been only a few donations that have come in, and we need more donations, if you don't mind. Even if it's just $1, something, which I know you all can do.
Can I ask a question? While we're going through this process, doesn't that stall the apartment building from being built?
Which process?
This
No, the
historical.
injunction.
We have an injunction in place. Yes, so that has stalled it. If you notice, the pretty little white house with the white picket fence is still there. And we're grateful to the owner that he is maintaining the property. But in terms of demolition, that has been on hold. And that is because we have stepped up as a community and retained an attorney. So that's
Which
the
we
only
need
reason,
donations for.
which we are paying. Yes, we do need donations, we do, in order to pay the attorney. And we do have our city council member, Tim McOsker. He is very aware of what's going on, and he's backing us, but we as the residents, we have to lead this.
Which I must say, if we do donations, they don't go into anybody's pocket. There's a dedicated account to pay the attorneys.
That is
So
correct.
don't think somebody's gonna go buy cookies or whatever. Please get the website so you can sell your accounts.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, I have a question to our community partners. We have a lot of homes that were looked to be one of the, or some of the houses that had the grand scale curb appeal that are aging, and some of the folks may not be able to get them back up to their luster that they once had. Are there any resources for those homeowners maybe that could get support to aesthetically fix it up from the exterior? Are there any resources for like maybe some folks that in other jurisdictions that have these type of districts?
I don't know, I'm looking to you, Andrew, for the.
Unfortunately, there's not enough. We get that question a lot, like, my house is designated, how do I help? It's, the Mills Act is the best incentive, and like I said, it benefits new homeowners, like Mark and Wanda, actually would get the best benefit, because they're the ones that are paying kind of property tax, you know, at a higher level than if you've lived there 20, 30 years, you have Prop 13. So in that sense, you know, you might be able to use the Mills Act and say, I'm saving $5,000 a year, you know, I can put that into maintenance. There are smaller grants, like the National Trust has grants, but they're very competitive. I would like see if there's something like the Block Club can do, or like could you pool money and do that? It kind of takes community to figure out a way to help with that. But
Legacy business.
I know everybody.
oh yeah, we do also have we're working on a legacy business program. This is outside the district, the residential district, but we just completed a contract with the city where we did a toolkit for legacy businesses, and there's a website where you can sign up your legacy business. So if you know anyone that has their business 20 years or plus, please get them to sign up, and there are grants available for those businesses. And we've connected a couple of businesses we're working with $5,000, $10,000 grants, sometimes to relocate, sometimes to do a facade improvement, because those commercial properties are part of the neighborhood too. And for them to, you know, just get new signage helps them, you know, makes the community look better, brings more customers in for them, and those are available now. So we're always hopeful for more funding. The city right now is in a tough financial situation, so I think designation is important, that when funding is available, we might have some options, but right now it is a tough landscape, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the National Trust for Historic Preservation, my organization, does have grant programs, as Andrew mentioned. They tend to be for, almost exclusively for nonprofit organizations, someone with a 501c3 tax exempt status, or governmental organizations. So that means the Block Club, if they are a 501c3, they could apply to us for funding. You know, your office could apply to us. So that we do have those funds, but they tend to be intended for kind of more communal projects, as opposed to like an individual property owner getting something to deal with their own home.
But it can help like with some kind of signage, like banners.
Absolutely.
Black history ones.
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, and it could even help, like you can use them to, like if you want wanted to hire a consultant who could basically, or someone who could then do, like, who could contract them out to do individual consultations with property owners for, here's the, 3 things that you could do to fix up your property, and here's an estimate for how much we think that might cost. You could be really creative with how you use those grants.
Okay, very good.
And then I would also say the National Trust also has a Conserving Black Modernism grant, and a church we're working with in Koreatown got it last year. They got this great grant funding. And then there's
the African American Historic Places Grant Fund as well. Again, those are intended for, those are primarily, again, nonprofits and governmental, but we have multiple grant programs for which, you could consider applying on a larger scale.
How can we get that information? I mean, we've named several of them.
Yeah, certainly. So we have all of the information about all of our grants is on our website. So Pamela mentioned, Leonard, you're putting together a neighborhood website. We can put all of that, links to all of that information, as well as the information that you requested about the project and all our contact information in one location, so you can find it all.
Question, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Elaine Simpson, and I live on 121st Street. Right next door, they're building a facility. And what I'd like to know is, did we have any input? It's kind of late now because they're really building it and it's going up. But did the community have any input as how this is going to be operated?
So good question, and the answer to that is no. So you're talking about some kind of group home, adult residential care facility. It could be a halfway house. All of those are under the state community care and licensing division. It is not something that comes through the city of Los Angeles for us to be able to weigh in or approve or deny it. It's by right, by state code. The only thing is if it's a large facility that has, I believe, more than 6 people that are there, if it exceeds that, then you have to get a conditional use permit. And that's when it comes to us. But the initial proposal for that use does not come to us, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I did talk to some of the contractors over there, and they said it's going to be a large facility, 5 bedrooms, and he wasn't able to tell me how many were occupied.
Yes.
And he wasn't able to tell me who will be on site.
And they're not going to do that because of protection, because of the type of people that may be housed there. So they don't advertise that information. It could be women, battered women, young children. I mean, it's a large category of those type of uses from the state. So if you want to contact me and we can talk offline, we can. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, so we have 30 more minutes. So I just wanted to go over a couple of things. So I am a proud resident of Athens on the Hill. And I didn't necessarily know the history of the neighborhood myself. I just liked the way it looked. And my background is in planning, land use, and zoning. I started my career with LA County Department of Regional Planning. And I did field work, worked with the Sheriff's Department, did code enforcement, I was a planner, did everything. I've been all over the place. And I happened to be at a meeting over at the Sheriff's Youth Station right on 120th across from Ralph's. And I was driving around, and I was like, oh, I like it over here. And one of the first houses that I bid on, I was naive and I had the lockbox key code. My mom and I were going in and the guy was behind us and we didn't really notice him. So he came in with us and that was my competitor in the bidding process. Nobody else had bid. It was on 127th, like going to where the big traffic circle is now. Huge house, beautiful. I cry every time I pass it. But that's initially how I got introduced to the neighborhood. And so I got married, moved away, divorced, moved back. And then I started engaging with the neighborhood council, where I served for 7 years on the neighborhood council. And that's how I got involved in understanding the history of the neighborhood and all of the people that have resided or still reside in the neighborhood. So I just wanted to go over, because I don't know if everybody knows everybody, but we are interconnected in so many ways. It's amazing when I start talking to people, right? So I'm gonna call some people out, so don't get mad at me. So Mr. Herman, stand up for the people. Tell them who you are and your legacy.
I'm Herman Bilbrew. I'm a descendant of A.C. Bilbrew, the A.C. Bilbrew Library.
To babysit, I don't remember, but he had a yellow Corvette, and even though it was just like 2 blocks from the Roseboro house, because I lived down on Arbor Place, just down the hill, my dad would say, "Oh, that Corvette is beautiful," and Johnny Roseboro would drive me the 2 blocks after I finished babysitting for the kids, and it was a thrill. But also on Athens on the Hill, we, as I grew up, our family, there was a house next door, or one away from the Roseboro's house, where the voting, we had the voting. I don't know if they're still.
The sun's still there. The
Oh,
vote passed.
okay.
About a couple of years.
So every time that we voted, we'd walk up the hill, and we're going, because it had a horseshoe driveway, and we would line up to vote at that house. I don't remember their names, but it's a memory from my childhood. Okay.
And Richard Goodman was like the mayor.
Yeah, the mayor of the neighborhood.
Yeah, he kept the neighborhood straight.
Okay.
And that's when it started going downhill after he died.
Oh, okay. But that's my memory of growing up and walking up to Athens Boulevard, and it was a great boulevard. And with Johnny Roseboro and the babysitting, and then voting all those years with my family.
Thank you for sharing that. I have a couple more people. Okay, Mr. Lewis.
All right. I am Lewis Richard. I live on 121st Street. My home was owned by Otis Chandler, the founder of the Los Angeles Times. Very historic, found a lot of different things in there. Found like a map, hand-painted map that's like the size of a piece of plywood that was made by Etta and Clarence Forkroom, which back in the early 1900s, they would do oil maps of the city. And I've got it hanging in my home right now, and that's about it. I know my neighbor across the street, because I'm put her on blast. It's Cat a Corner. Her in the back of her house, they used to have a big, huge barn where the first printings of the Herald Examiner were printed.
Yeah.
It's Kim.
You want to stand up?
Well, we've been there since we bought our house in 2000, right after you guys bought ours. We bought it from some Koreans, and we love the house. And I did later on get a postcard, and I can't find it to save my life, from a lady who lived there as a little girl. She just happened to send us a postcard. She asked about, we had this fabulous persimmon tree. Unfortunately, it died. She said, "Do you still have that tree?" It was a beautiful tree. Yeah, it died. But that's it. We love our house. We love it. It's very peaceful. We love the neighborhood.
Yeah. One more thing I have to say was really crazy. I'm sitting here at the house one day, and somebody comes knocking on my door. And this guy comes to the door, and he says, "Excuse me, my grandfather used to own this house." I guess he owned it after no, it wasn't the Williams. It was his name was Howard Johansson, and I guess what he did, he's Howard's racing camps. He was a big racing guy.
So when I'm talking to him, he's on the phone with his mom, because his mom grew up in it. So I said, come on in. And his mom is describing the house to a T. Everything there, and they describe it to a T, her bedroom, with everything that was going on. I learned a lot just from him about the home. I guess his mom got married there, and you're just talking about the whole thing and the layout of the house and the way it was built. I guess they live out in Menifee or whatever. I guess her cousins or whatever love the house so much that they built a house pretty much on that scale out in Menifee.
Very nice. So we have a lot of rich history, and I want to play one of Leonard King's archives. For the actual Share Your Story initiative, I want to share this. I think this is a good one for us to end our day.
I think the TV's off, Pamela. Turned off.
Put a quarter in.
There it is.
Start with the basic stuff. Your first and last name and your age, if you don't mind sharing that.
My name is Alonzo Williams Jr., resident of 12228 Arbor Place, right here in Athens Heights. I'm 68 years old.
And where's your family from?
My family, my mom is from Louisiana, my dad is from Mississippi. They migrated here like so many people did to get jobs at they worked at Douglas Aircraft, and I was born in Compton, lived in Compton first, and then I moved just outside of Compton, between Compton and where I am right now in Athens Heights, over in the unincorporated parts of LA, on Carlton Avenue. Stayed there most of my life till I moved to Athens Heights.
And when did you begin to live in this specific neighborhood?
I bought this house in 85. But in 1985, got lucky on the record deal, and timing was right, and I was able to pick it up. Been here ever since. Ain't looking to go nowhere.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier you bought this house from Johnny Otis.
Johnny Otis, the king of R&B.
Yeah.
I knew of Johnny Otis as a young man. His music was all over the radio. I never met him. And it was, at that time, my dad had a lawn service. We cut lawns all over the neighborhood, all over the neighborhood. This is one of his main areas. We were cutting lawns over here before the 105. In fact, we lost a lot of lawns because of the 105. It was just people, we gotta go. And houses became vacant, and we just kind of migrated more over here. And most of the lines we cut were like 121st on the corner, both sides of the street. And this street right here was one of our main streets. And oddly enough, as a kid, I cut my lawn a couple of times when Johnny Otis lived here. Next door was the Nickersons was one of our main yards across the street from me, and next door, and Etta James. She was right on the corner. That was a part of our regular route. And every once in a while, Johnny would hit my daddy up, hey, could you come over here, cut me? I got a party, my garden didn't make it, blah, blah, blah. And I had to drag a lawnmower up this hill to cut this lawn, and I hated it. But again, who knew the one dad owned the house?
Can you describe the community during that time you were growing up in this area, like its physical attributes? You mentioned there was a 105.
Before the 105 freeway was here, it was houses from here all the way to Imperial Highway. I mean, still a lot of houses here, but they took eminent domain and took a bunch of houses out to build the freeway. They did that all the way down to the almost to the ocean, almost to aviation, and it impacted the community quite a bit. And a lot of people got displaced, but overall, it was progress. Okay,
They were selling a house. You could buy a house back then for $1. $1, because you had to move it, but you can buy it. In fact, before, when I was a kid, my dad actually bought a garage where I lived at off of Main and El Segundo. He had a huge lot and had a garage. When he had a garage, he converted it into a bedroom. It was a 2-bedroom house. We needed 3. He turned the garage into a bedroom, so we didn't have a garage. So he bought one of those garages and put it on the back of a trailer and drug it down the street. And him and his buddies made the foundation, the whole 9 yards, and set it down on the foundation. And that's how we got a garage on our place from over here, all the way off of
What are some of your fondest memories growing up in this community?
When you used to go all the way through. This was my I had friends that lived down on Century, so I'd always come down Hoover, and I knew this was a good way to avoid traffic. Because at one time you could go out on Athens Way, Athens Boulevard, go across Figueroa and keep on going to the park. And that was a great way to avoid traffic. Without having to get on the freeway, not having to go down Vermont, because Vermont was always, a busy street, and then the freeway was busy. But if you knew how to go down Hoover, you could just slide down Hoover, bust a left on Athens, come on across, next thing you know, you're on Broadway. I'm at home now. I live on Main Street. So that was kind of the cool part about it. I played at Athens Park. Never had a lot of experience at Helen Keller, but I had friends that lived across Vermont. One of my good buddies lived across Vermont. So, I mean, this whole area has been a part of my growing up even before I lived here.
Was there any historical or significant events that took place while you were growing up here? I'm just thinking back to like the Rock's riots of 1965 and the Rodney King riots of 1992. Did you notice any of that impacting this area?
We've always been pretty lucky, man. I remember the watch ride in 55. I was 10 years old, and we had just got their garage in my backyard, and it was funny because we had a basketball court, we didn't have a gate on the driveway. By me being the oldest, I was the only one that was allowed to go out and get the basketball on the road out in the street. So now we have National Guard coming through on a regular patrol, and somehow they dropped a bullet on the ground. And we 10 years old, I found a bullet not this big. Now I'm playing with this bullet. And my brother told on me. My middle name is Eric. Everybody that knows me from this neighborhood as a kid, they call me Eric right to this day. And Eric got a bullet. I got a spanking for having the bullet and I turned it in, but my mama ran up on the National Guard truck and gave these guys the blues. And I'm thinking, yes ma'am, yes ma'am, yes ma'am. That wasn't here, but that's something I experienced as a kid. In 1992, I was here. And during the riots of 1992, again, we've always been kind of isolated over here, man. If you don't know where you're going, there's no reason to come over here. You can either go down Vermont, Figueroa, or the freeway takes you right past here. It wasn't until they were working on the 105, the Harbor Freeway at one time, and they had blocked off, and people started coming through here a lot. Because they had blocked off, there was one way to get in, one way to get out on Hoover, I think it was. And it made a lot more traffic over here. That's when we started having a couple of issues. But once they blocked off over here and did something else, it just changed, we went back to normal.
We kind of spoke to this already, but how has the community evolved over time? Like, what would you say are the biggest differences today versus back then?
Again, for me, I see a lot more activity. I walk almost daily around here. I didn't do that before. I see people taking advantage of walking down Athens. That's almost like a trail for people who are trying to do anything remotely healthy. And they love walking. And some of them, I don't even know, we just wave at each other because we would walk at different times. The community's pretty much been the same. We have a few more different nationalities coming in. We have more Latinos than we had before. A couple of white families in the neighborhood now. Not a whole lot, but it's still pretty much predominantly they call it an upwardly mobile black community. Okay.
Earlier we were talking about like your music career. By the late 70s, you were one of the most popular DJs in LA. You are considered the godfather of West Coast hip hop, and you were instrumental in launching the careers of artists like NWA, Michelet, Compton's Most Wanted. Can you speak to that? And did this community play a role in any of that?
My hip hop history, I bought this house and I got my epic record deal. We got a nice fat check, and Etta James, who's a friend of the family, she's a friend of my dad's friend of mine. My brother worked with her, and she called me up. My brother told her I got this record deal, and she's like, she know Etta, you know what he was on Etta. Etta was very, very important. She always had something crazy to say. Lonzo, you take that money, and go buy Johnny Elvis. We got a brand new studio over there. All right then. And there was no for sale sign there, anything. My buddy was a realtor. He made a few phone calls. I see, I thought it too. And because the studio was here, and he wanted more money because he knew I wasn't for the studio, and because there was no other house around here with the studio, we had to go outside the area to get comps for it. He wanted $160,000 for it. I paid $125,000, but he carried it. No, the bank I gave him $125,000 yet. So the bank only give me $100,000. But because we had all that musical synergy, not only was NWA here, Patrice Rushing was raised around the corner. Paul Jackson Jr. lived right down the street. So I felt kind of good because this was like the east side, Ladera Heights. Okay, like the east side of Ladera Heights. It's not as big as Ladera Heights, but it's ours. You see what I'm saying? So when I started doing my music thing, and I tell people I live off of Hoover, oh my God, Hoover. Come on, man. And they saw what we were like, what is this? And it was always a pleasant surprise, whether it was a white executive or another act, because people, we talk about the 80s. Gangs is getting busy. Hoover's was a factor. The name Hoover was a factor in gang activity, but when they saw where we lived, everything just calmed down. And so I was able to bring people in from Inglewood, LA, Compton, all over, and be here in the studio and make music. And that gave us because we're like a neutral zone. There's not, you don't see kids playing on the streets. You very seldom see somebody ride a bike down the street. I ain't never saw anybody throw a football down the street in my life, okay? Never, ever. So when people came here, all the inhibitions were, kind of released because, okay, I can come back and relax. Easy would come over here after he was rich and hang out because he didn't want to go to Compton, and he had a house, he had a mansion in Woodland Hills, but he would come here and hang out because he had to have his bodyguard with him. So the whole transition, we got our deal from CBS. Like I said, Etta turned me onto the house, and I grew up less than a mile from here. I had a studio at that house also, and this is where everything kind of came together. My original group was World Class Record Crew. We're the ones that got the record deal. I'm the one that got Ice Cube's first record deal. He was in a group called CIA. I signed them. They was from a stereo group. I signed them to Epic before that to a record deal. Before we even released our first album. We did our albums back here, we did all our demos back here, and this is the same spot. If you ever seen Movie Straight Outta Compton, they are talking about this house right here. When you see them all in the studio gathered together, in the last scene, when I walk out there, no, Dre, you got it? That was depicted at my house. When Eazy-E did his demos, he did his demos right here. HBO, the guy, Homeboys Only, came to this house to do the demos, didn't like what Ice Cube had written, and was here about 45 minutes and left. We outside waiting. So this has become the historical house when it comes to music and entertainment. This house came from Johnny Otis's hands, who was the godfather of R&B, to my hands, which is the godfather of West Coast hip hop. And because of having a studio, and a nightclub at the same time, I was able to not only record, but also provide a platform for folks to entertain and be on stage. So it just made, then we had the relationship with the radio station, KD. So it just made for a trifecta that was, probably never happened again. It was a beginning of West Coast hip hop, the clubs, the studios, everything. It just all came together at one time. And later, once NWA decided they wanted to go, half the record crew wanted to be gangsters, then they did the stuff here, and they moved on, and became NWA, the world's most dangerous group. And it all started right here.
That's amazing. Yeah, I really think a lot about that synergy.
So I'm gonna end it there because it's a little long. I just want to give you a little highlight snippet of minutes worth. So we need you to sign up so you can be interviewed too. So if anybody is interested, please, before you leave today, contact some of our community partners here. Chris is one. And so are you excited about this?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. If you pass by, you might miss it. If you blink, it fades from view. But there's a story in these streets, every note, every groove, every truth. Etta sang the blues right here. Johnny Otis wrote that sound. Paul Jackson Jr. strummed his dreams, and Patrice made keys profound. Is a hidden piece of heaven where the music never died. A calm in the middle of the city storm, where peace and love reside. Athens on the hill, we still stand strong, protecting what's ours, where we all belong. No gangs, no hate, just love that's real. Thank God for the soul of Athens on the hill. Between El Segundo and 20th Street, Vermont to Fig, that's where hearts beat. It's a neighborhood of legends, but they don't teach that in the schools. They'd rather sell the lots, raise the rent, break the golden rules. Now they talk about progress, we know what that means. 50 strangers moving in, disturbing lifelong dreams. No parking, no peace, no corporate deal. Thank God for the roots of Athens on the hill. Don't fade away, we fight for the soul of yesterday. No parking, no peace, no corporate deal. Thank God for the roots of Athens on the hill. They can buy the houses, but they can't buy the heart. Can't buy the laughter from the porches or the love in every part. This ain't just dirt, this ain't just land. It's rhythm, it's memory, it's where we stand. Oh. We remember the sounds that built these blocks. The neighbors walk, the sidewalk talks. From the R&B kings to the hip-hop gods. This ain't no accident, this is where it all starts. So when they come with their plans and their dollar bills, we stand tall for Athens on the hill. Athens on the hill, we still stand proud for the voices of the past. We sing out loud, you can change the skyline, but you can't steal the feel. Thank God for the soul of Athens on the hill. Yeah, the hill still hum that melody, the kind you can't destroy or steal. As long as we breathe, the music lives on forever. in Athens on the hill. In Athens on